Hello, I am Jeff Crenshaw, and you're listening to Heavy Set Go. Hello, I'm Jeff Crenshaw, and you're listening to Heavy Set Go. As you probably expected, through just muscle memory, learning to deal with heartache and disappointment, you probably expected this, but it still is no easier to tell you that Alan Burrell didn't show up for tonight's podcast.
That asshole.
Fair, fuck you, I'm still doing the intro. But to be fair...
God, I come in from Pendleton, 3.5 hours away, drive through the snow. It's like, Alan's going to be here, Ben's going to be here. It's going to be a great goddamn time. But no, nobody's here. I'm stuck in the room with Jeff. You guys know how much... Oh my God, I feel like I need to jump out of the window or something. Sorry, go ahead. I'm ruining your intro, Jeff.
You were aware of the format we discussed.
I don't give a damn about... I'm not a regular on this show. I can do what I want.
Well, because you're not a regular, that's why the format's in place.
God damn it.
You dick. Anyway, our guest tonight is a fucking douchebag, but he is also a...
Hey, Jeff, let me pull up my camera phone here, and I'm going to put the front-facing camera on, and I want you to say that again.
Why are you doing this? Let's start over.
I was going to say, it's like a mirror. You look at yourself in the mirror.
Let's start over. This is a mess.
That was fucking great.
God.
You're a dumbass. All right, let's do it.
Hello, I'm Jeff Crenshaw, and you're listening to Heavy Set Go. Alan isn't here tonight, and neither is Ben.
Boo.
Boo. Alan just doesn't care about this man. Ben does, but he's probably off watching Westworld or some shit.
Or something.
Or he's at Best Buy. But
so porn.
That's where he works, making an honest living. But our guest tonight is a occasional movie star, and a bit of he's considered the bull screw guard.
The bolster? What?
You're like the big tough guard that all the inmates hate.
Sure, let's go with that.
You're like Hadley from the ShannonShank Redemption.
It's been a long time since I've seen the ShannonShank. I need to watch that again.
But he really is a prison guard in addition to a
correctional officer. Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
That's like the official term.
It's like you can't call flight attendants stewards or stewardesses.
Well, the difference between a guard, so like back in the day, all a guard did was they just sat around, and when there was a fight, they win it. They didn't do shit. Now, like, there's so much that you have to do. There's so much proactive measures. There's so much more you got to know. So it's like, when I'm on a unit, so we have multiple different units. Mm-hmm. Smallest one, about 73. The largest is about 107 guys. So when we're on a unit, let's say we're the one with 107 guys, like, you're going to call, you are, like, the authority figure on the unit. You're the only cop, basically, on this unit. You got to make sure people are following the rules. You got to make sure no one's taking advantage of each other. No one's extorting people. You got to be proactive in making sure that people are following the rules. You have to make sure, like, people are going to their call-outs. Make sure they need to be where they're going to be. Do they have a medical call-out? Okay, you need to make sure they're going. Okay, we have a yard line going. Hey, we got a shower sign-up going. Okay, this guy needs to go here. This guy needs to go here. Like, you're a father figure to some of the younger inmates, which... they said that was going to happen, but I found it really weird when the 18-year-olds, because, like, there's, like, 70-year-old men in prison, there's 50, there's 30, and when some of the younger guys, they tend to hold around the officers just a little bit more for protection, and then, so it's like
do they call you
your
daddy?
Officer, once, but I had to stomp that, I was like, no. That's a little crossing the line.
They called you daddy?
Yeah. I
with a Y, not just dad?
He called me, he was like, hey, daddy, can you, I'm like, no. I think he was mostly fucking with me, but no, you gotta cut that off out the chain. That was a little weird. Like, hey, daddy, would you come here? And I'm like, wait, the fuck, is he talking to me? hey, come over. No, you do not say that. That is inappropriate.
What was he in for?
So I work at Eastern Oregon Correctional Institution. It's out in Pendleton, Oregon. So it's mainly, I don't have any statistics off the top of my head, but it's mainly, it's like 60% sex crimes, so rape, pedophilia, any of that kind of jazz. Throw in some murders, assault, kidnapping, I don't know. I think a guy tried to plant a bomb once. Like, there's a bunch of things. We have 1,600, 1,700 inmates there, so it's a wide variety of things. You know, we have two different sides of the institution: east and the west. West is cells, east side's dorm units. Like I said, we can go from like.
What's
70...
the difference between cells and dorm units?
So cells are a little lower, so they're like 73 to 80 is the usual. That side is more where the gangs operate. It's easier to control smaller units like that, and where people are more separated. On the dorm units, like I said, up to 107 people. People are talking to each other more often. They got to see each other. It's harder to hate people when you have to interact with them every day. But when you're on a cell unit, it's a lot easier to have the divide when when the end of the day people go back in their cells.
I imagine you were in a cell unit.
So I'm the tower officer in the West Yard on the swing shift. Basically, I'm the glorified flex officer right now. So during the summer, we have a yard line at night, which is I work the swing shift 4 to 12. And then they have a yard line from 6:30 to 8:30, but that's only during the summer months. So when it got darker here in October, we bid September to March. So for a month, I was a tower officer. And then after that, basically, I'm just a flex, which a flex means someone calls in sick or they have an opening, I just go there. So basically, I'm kind of the go-to guy. I go anywhere in the institution where they need it. So I'm in a position that's very flexible right now.
So you're not just one section.
So I like any given day I can be anywhere in the institution. I can be up in medical. I can be doing like a dining room officer. I can be the multi-officer. I can be on Alpha 1, 2, 3, Delta 1. Charlie. There is no Delta 1, I'm sorry. Like Charlie 1 or Echo 1, any of that kind of stuff.
What the fuck do those things mean? Charlie,
so,
Echo,
we have different units. So, on Eastern Oregon Correctional Institution, we have Alpha 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are our units. Bravo 1, 2, 3, 4. Charlie 1. Those are the units on the west side.
Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie. Are they like different wings of the west side?
Eastern Oregon Correctional Institution used to be a state mental hospital. It was built in 1901.
Oh, shit.
So it's a really, really old place. They've made some additions, but they had to convert it from a mental hospital to a state mental hospital to a prison. So it's a 4-story building, and like Alpha 1 is like the first floor, Alpha 2 is the second, third, fourth. And it's not what people think a prison is. It's supposed to be, and it really isn't, but it's made shift to kind of do what they can. So they look good, but it's kind of old, so it's showing its age in a lot of the places. But yeah, you have like Alpha 1, 2, 3, 4, Bravo 1, 2, 3, 4, Charlie 1, and then Charlie 2 is where visitation happens. 3 and 4 is the library and the education. Then we have Echo 2, 3, 4, which is on the east side, Fox 2, 3, 4, Golf 2, 3, 4, and then H1 and H2. Then you have segregation, which is the crazy part.
How big is each, like Charlie and Alpha 1?
So from Alpha 1 to Charlie 1, it varies, but it's between 73. 73 is the lowest, I believe, and that's, I think, Alpha 2. And then Charlie 1, so it goes from between 73 to 80.
And that's in like just Alpha 1 and not Alpha 1, 2, and 3?
Yeah. So it's Alpha 1, Alpha 2, Alpha 3, Alpha 4. Between Alpha 1 and Charlie 1, which is on the whole west side.
Okay, the whole Alpha is 73, so...
No, Alpha 1 is its own unit, A2 is its own unit, A3, and every unit has an officer with them.
How many,
So like Alpha 1, for example, has 75 inmates and 1 staff.
And then Alpha 2 has 75 other inmates.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, I got you.
So we have about 1,600 to 7. I think we're over 1,700 now inmates total within the facility.
What's the food like there?
Better than you would expect,
really?
But still not super great.
I'm picturing like oatmeal that you have to like sift for worms.
No, it's not that bad.
Oh.
I mean, the chefs do the best they can. Is it the best food in the world? Probably not. But it's like hospital food in the sense that you have to make for a lot of people. Smaller meals you make for 2 or 3 people are always going to be better. But, when you're making for, 1,600 inmates that are going to come for chow.
Probably a lot of filler like rice and stuff.
Some of the stuff, yeah. But, they'll make tamales, they'll make lasagna, they'll make tacos, they'll do steak and ham or they do a lot of interesting things, nachos and stuff. Are they always the best quality? No, but most of the stuff's pretty decent. Spaghetti, God, just trying to think what they had.
And you've had some of this yourself?
Yeah. So the officers, we have a dining area there. It's not free for us, but it's like $2, so it's pretty cheap.
Gotcha.
And yeah, we can go. Yeah, I'll usually go just to save time. You know, you get, for $2, you kind of can eat as much as you want. So
Do you pay out of pocket or is it out of your paycheck?
no, we pay up at the front desk. We get like a little book of like little tickets, and then we put it we give it to the inmate who takes the orders, and they like, hey, okay, I paid for it.
So what's your favorite prison food?
There are some, okay, so some of the meals you definitely want to stay away from. The spaghetti and marinara is, the spaghetti with chicken's marinara is awful. No one likes it, everyone comes out. But like, man, they had some tamales the other day that were phenomenal.
And these are made by inmates.
Yeah, so so they have food coordinators that are down in the chow hall, or not in the chow hall, but in the sometimes in the chow hall, but they're in the kitchen. You know, they're following recipes, they're making sure everyone's good. You know, most of the guys there's some chefs and people that are. We had, I don't know if we still have him, but we had a guy that he murdered his wife, so he was in there for like 25 years, but he worked at like a 4-star restaurant. Man, there's some really talented guys in that kitchen.
So he murdered his wife, but hey, here's Shannon.
Again, it's kind of weird when you first get in the institution. You're like, oh man, this guy did this. Oh, this is awful. This is awful. But eventually, you just you get a little numb to it. Not to say that, I mean, you know it's bad, but at the same time, you're like, I'm not shocked by some of the things I read anywhere. I've only been there for about 2 years now, but it's still I'm not as shocked as I used to be when I first started the job, and I don't know if that's good or bad, but.
You're reminding me of this field trip I took my junior year to Oregon State Penitentiary and like.
Oh, did you go to OSP? Man, that place was built in like before Oregon was a state in like 1840 or 1850.
It's that old?
Yeah, parts of that building is condemned.
Really? So no inmates in
Yeah, no. Well, some of the parts I don't know exactly, which is mostly secondhand from my friend. I've never been there, but that place is old. Like the term bar boxes, like there was little bars that you pull, like that pull counterweights. It's like 7 or 8 officers per 600 inmates on a tier.
Damn. And
they're all like the high capacity inmates. I mean, that's the max.
Wow.
In Oregon.
I went there. There was a series of classes that you could take. You could pack one, and if you decided to make it your CAM in high school, which was kind of the high school version of your major, there was pack 2 available. I ended up going with the Focused Arts and Media FAM major. So I only took pack 1.
And TV stuff? No, never.
But FAM wasn't just for TV. There was like music and art and stuff. But I did take pack 1 my junior year, and we took a field trip.
Are you throwing a shoe at that cat? Jeffrey Crenshaw.
No, just towards it, not
just
at
towards it. Okay, so not technically animal abuse. I don't have to see you inside my prison one day.
No.
You go to jail anyway, so it's fine.
But
which there is a difference, by the way. But go ahead.
Oh, I know that difference.
A lot of people don't. You'd be surprised.
Jail is a year and less, and prison is a year or more.
Yes, and nobody knows that. Everyone's just like, oh, 3 years, they're going to go to county, right? No, they go to prison. What?
Yeah, sorry, I know that difference. Anyway, went to a prison once, and it was kind of a weird feeling. They brought the class into a room with prisoners who had gained enough trust.
We call them inmates, is what the Oregon DOC uses. Inmates, and they're trying a new term called adults in custody. Doesn't roll off the tongue quite as well.
That sounds like bullshit. But they're inmates.
Inmates, yes.
That's fine. I refer to them as prisoners because
it is kind of the old way of thinking. But we can get into that later.
I'm sure that to them the terminology doesn't matter as much as the
a prisoner is kind of an insult.
It is?
Yeah.
Hey, I'm an inmate.
It's kind of like a guard to us. Is kind of.
Is there any good way to be an inmate or a prisoner? Like I'm an inmate.
I mean, there is. I'm sorry. Do we want to? You were telling your story. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
We can go into that. Sorry.
Let's go into that afterwards. Anyway, all of us went in as a group pack 1. It was, I think, Heather Zare and Julie Casper's class.
I remember them.
Oh yeah, loved them both. I've talked to Casper a few times. I haven't talked to Zare at all since high school. I miss her. She was a sweetheart. But very funny teacher. But I'm off track. We went in there and all these inmates Uh, basically, what I remember is they were all complaining about Measure 11, which mandatory minimum sentences. But the thing which I see in some cases is that
the majority of people that are in the DOC, at least in my experience, don't like Measure 11.
Yeah,
and I'm one of the people that don't like it either.
What Measure 11 is mandatory minimum sentences for the people that don't know.
So no matter what you did, and no matter the circumstances, you have to have at least X amount of time. And there are definitely inmates that reading their stories and knowing stuff that the circumstances, like one guy, so they did a no-knock raid on this. Sorry, you want me to?
Just 1 second. Let me finish the story.
All right. I'm just saying, you keep getting sidetracked. You gotta finish the story. A to B.
I'm trying to. I'm just hold your thoughts until I finish.
All right. Holding.
Sorry.
The holding pattern.
I ended up shaking hands with some of these guys. And well, thanks for telling your story. Thank you, Jeff. I'm thinking, how the fuck do you know my name? But pretty much all these guys were up. All these inmates, I almost said prisoners, were up like on their little stage giving their speeches. It's like, I broke into an elderly neighbor's house and murdered them and got drug money. And because of Measure 11, I'm going to be in jail for the rest of... or prison. I almost left.
It's all right. Most people that aren't in it, they don't.
I'm going to be in prison for the rest of my life. And so I'm against Measure 11. And then another one, I was at a drive-through window, and I shot the worker through the window when I was trying to rob them. And because of Measure 11, I'm going to be... And I remember all my classmates were like, oh my God, Measure 11's so bad. And I'm thinking, well, maybe it is bad, but are these the examples they brought out?
See, that's the thing. Like, so, at least in my experience in prison, there's definitely been a couple people that have told me they didn't do it. But the majority of people in prison, I would say about 98% of people, own up to their crime pretty easily. There's not a lot of... it's kind of sickening when you first hear you got a quote from a guy. I'm on a unit called Fox 3, which is kind of the segregation dump. So when you get out of Seg, it's one of the units you kind of go to. So it's kind of it's a mess. But it's like, yeah, man, like, people don't work for the money. When I put that gun in that lady's face, I earned that money, man. I worked for it. I put my life on the line for that money.
Oh,
and I'm
fuck
just like,
you, dude.
listening to this guy, like, what the fuck, dude? And this kid's like, oh my God, he's only like 19. He's not that old. But
how long is he in jail?
He
for?
was in prison for probably like 5 or 6 years.
Oh.
But
that guy's going back.
He had robbery. He told her to go. Maybe a little long. Honestly, I don't know exactly how long. He had like robbery or attempted kidnapping because he told her to go someplace, because he was trying to get her off the street and stuff. And just like man, there's some really fucked up people in prison. You would be surprised.
He only has 5 years because,
like I said, it could be longer. I don't know these. So when I first started the job, and I first got my first unit, Bravo 3, I was like, I need to look up every single one of these guys, and I need to know everything about them. And the more you do this job, the less I start looking up. There's definitely some people I'm like, man, this is the nicest guy in the world. What's he? Holy shit, he's a contract killer. Wow. Kind of things like that where you're just like, because most of the people in prison are pretty polite. I would say it's about an 80-20 split in my experience, where it's like most people realize they fucked up and they're going to try and not do it again. Oregon has one of the lower recidivism rates in the United States.
The people I met were very kind, but they were all murderers who were complaining about Measure 11.
See, it's like, in my experience, especially a lot of the people where they just snapped. There's some people that I've read some... guys that you always feel sorry for some people. Like, I empathize. It's empathy, not sympathy. Mm-hmm. It's like, I feel like those guys were in a rough situation. Growing up, their family abused the hell out of him, and then he finally got sick of it and killed his abuser. It's like, I feel sorry. I understand. Like, I feel sorry for that guy's situation. That sucks.
What's the line between in a case like that? Maybe you don't know because you're their guardian and maybe not a legal expert, but to your knowledge, what's the line between that being considered murder and self-defense?
So I can't say I'm an expert in the legal stuff like that, but from my understanding is premeditated is definitely one.
So if he's coming at you directly and
there's a difference between self-defense. If you just punch the guy, I guess it depends on how much. Even if you do that and then you try and cover it up,
That,
That's
that'll
a
be
crime, which I've seen that.
That's considered murder.
That is, yeah, exactly. That doesn't happen as much, at least in my, so like there's a lot of inmates in Oregon DOC. We have like 10, 13 prisons. We got something like that. I don't know the exact numbers. All of them vary in numbers, but my place is only about 1,700. So that's my 2 years of working. I've definitely seen a couple of those. But, you don't see that as much most of the time. It is premeditated, like, I'm going to go kill this guy. I'm going to do this. Like they said, the contract killers, I knew that guy for a year and a half, never looked him up until recently. He's a barber on one of the units I'm on, and it's just like, wow.
Has he cut your hair?
No, the inmate barber. Okay. So the inmates have barbers to cut their hair and stuff like that.
So inmates are not permitted to cut the guards' hair just in case they get...
Oh, no, I mean, they're not going to... Why would we go there when I can go to Great Clips down the street and not have to worry about an inmate?
Yeah, true.
Yeah. So it's like, a lot of them have jobs and stuff like that. So at least at UCI, we have like an electricianal program, HVAC, plumbing. We have a call center. We have a garment factory. We try to do a lot of the trades, and then we have... so we do a lot of the trades, and we're hoping teaching the guys a skill. Once they get out, they'll be able to do something with it. We don't have the funding to be able to do it as much as we wanted to. But I think so far, from what I've heard, is the majority of the inmates who have taken those programs don't come back. Because most of the guys coming into the prison, they don't even have a GED. Half don't have like a high school diploma or anything like that. So one of the things when you come to the DOC, depending on how much time you have, you're required to get your GED.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, so, I mean, they do their, like I said, the funding isn't there to do it for everybody, but for the majority of the people, Oregon really tries, at least at our institution, that when they leave, they're doing somewhat better. Because that's the thing, there's so many, they told us in the first day, as we're going through the academy, just like, these guys, they're going to be your neighbors one day, and you're just like, yeah, I guess. It's like, no, they really are in a small town like Pendleton. Pendleton's only about, 16,000 people. 2 years of working there, I've already met 2 people I knew on the inside. So it's like, you really want to make sure these guys aren't fucking doing it again. So, like, they do all right. There's definitely areas of improvement, but they really try. They have a Blue Mountain Community College up there, and they try to do their GED. They try to take some college classes. You can get a college degree through them. I don't know the specifics, but I know you can. Like I said, they got trade and garment factory. Hell, even the cooks and stuff. It's something, which is nice, but it's not, like I said, it's not perfect, but they give it their best shot with what they got.
That brings me to a question. I don't know how comfortable you are talking about it, and you've explained it to me pretty well in the past. But for people listening, I think it's an interesting, kind of a distinction that you have. You are a libertarian, but you don't believe in private prisons.
So some things. So I lean libertarian, definitely. Mm-hmm. There's some things I don't think that should be privatized, and law enforcement's one of them. Because the issue I see with prisons is that, like, when you are paid to have an inmate, there's no incentive to have that guy drop. If for some reason the inmate population drops and I lose my job, you know what? I feel okay with that because I did my job. But with a private prison, there's no incentive for that. The more inmates you have, the more money you get from the state. So when someone leaves, you want that guy to come back because you want money. You want your prison to be, profitable is the thing. And you know what? To a point, there is the same thing for the state. The state will tell you no, but it's there. But it's nowhere near as much because we have this immense pressure from the public and from people in Washington. When you put money in the DOC budget, everyone groans and hollers like, oh, why the hell do we need this? So the incentive is to drop it. There's never not going to be inmates. That's just kind of how people are going to commit crimes. But the thing is, the population's way higher than we want it to be right now.
Do you think part of that is over sentencing for nonviolent crimes?
At EOCI, we are a medium security facility, so we do not see a lot of drug offenders. I've seen a couple people that had $500,000 of heroin or something like that, or not $500,000, but something like that. And I mean, though Oregon has been really good about decriminalizing it and making it more of a county issue, it still does suck. because there are some really violent, there are some bad people. Crime doesn't need to be violent. Identity theft and you're stealing millions of dollars from people, that's awful.
Yeah.
That ruins people's lives. But, definitely...
But I mean,
But what I'm saying is definitely the violent people need to have the priority, because the prison population... So the issue was the Oregon population was way less before Measure 11. After Measure 11, like I said, I don't have the statistics in front of me, but it jumped up like 30-40%. It's just been going up since then, and it's a measure that the public voted on, so we can't just get rid of it. It was a good idea at the time, but there's so many... every case and every instance is unique. There's no two murders that are the same. Very few. Or two assaults, or, if a guy gets egged on by people, but he throws the first swing, he's mandatory to, 2 or 3 years or something like that. Even though a judge can be like, okay, under the circumstances, these people were, doing this to try and provoke you, here's 60 days, whatever, like that. Mm-hmm. It really should be up, not to say the judges are always perfect, like what's that case with the one guy who raped a person?
Brock Turner?
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Holy shit, those are the guys we have in our prison that are going to be there for 10 years. Like, those are bad people. Those are the people that need to be in prison.
Yeah.
Like I said, judges are never going to be 100%, but I feel like they're going to be better than just a mandatory, you have to be here for this long. Because like I said, I've seen a couple cases where it's just like, man, that sucks. Like, you shouldn't be here for this long.
But Brock Turner, what was your reaction when you heard that he was...
Dumbass. Like whoever the judge was, I can kind of understand a part of what he was saying about this guy is going to be a sex offender his whole life. Like, he's already being punished, but he needs to be in prison for way longer than that. Like, this is the exact reason we have prisons, is for the crime he committed. If you don't want to throw him for 10 years, okay, like maybe 6 or 7, but it needs to be more than what it was at 60 days or 2 years. What was it, like a year? It wasn't that much at all.
He ended up staying, I think, he was sentenced to 6 months, and I think he got out
6 months after 3 months or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, that's ridiculous. And like I said, that's where, since it's up to individual judges, some are going to, screw up. I think like that. I think that was a case of good intentions, but he didn't think it through, or didn't think what the public would react.
His reasoning, we talked about this with Myra.
Like I said, his reasoning was that guy is going to have the stigma of being a sex offender his whole life. Everywhere he sees movies, he's going to have to go knocking on doors. He's going to have trouble with employment. But that doesn't mean just because he has that on him, he chose to commit the crime. He didn't choose to not do it.
Well, part of it was...
it's an old saying, if you can't do the time, don't do the crime.
Part of it was he was a Stanford kid who was a good swimmer, and the judge was...
That's the dumbest thing in the world.
I know. The judge was saying, oh, this kid has so much potential. He could be in the Olympics someday. Why would we want to put this prison term on him?
Everybody has choices in their life. Some people have horrific childhoods, from what I've seen, and it's harder to make that good choice. But everybody has that choice to make in life, and you can choose in this instant, am I going to do the right thing or am I going to do the wrong thing? And both you and me, I can't know every personal detail of your life, but I'm assuming you've done the right thing for the most part. I feel like I've done the same thing. We've all had that instant where it's like, hey, we could do this or not. It's like I door dinged a lady in the mall, or in Tri-Cities the other day. The wind was gushing, and man, when I opened that door, there was like 30-mile-per-hour winds, and I wrecked that side of the car. I just opening my door, I did pretty good damage. No one saw, no cameras in the corner, but I did the right thing, let them know out of the window, and I went to the mall, and we tried to get thing over the PA system so I could talk to her. It's it's gonna hurt me, it's gonna suck, my deductible is gonna go up. It's just the right thing to do, though, and that's he had the chance to do the right thing. He didn't. And that's why he needs to go to prison, is because he chose to rape that woman. And that's horrific. I can't imagine on a personal level being like, okay, this is the right thing to do. I'm going to do this.
I don't think it was a choice between right and wrong. It was just, well, one, it was a case of horrible impulse control. There was none.
Horrible impulse control.
And the fact that he had an impulse, I'm going to rape her. But
I mean, the guy was looking for sex. That's exactly what it was.
But how is that a turn on someone
I mean, some
unconscious.
people just don't care. They, and if you don't give the person consciousness, just go buy a fleshlight or something.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many ways to,
Yeah.
there's so much porn on the internet. Just go home and rub one out real quick. Don't rape a lady when she's unconscious or she was dry. You don't remember the full thing.
It was horrific. Apparently, I think all the credit in the world to the guys that caught him and chased him down. I remember reading on this that when he got on the stand, he was crying because he was so disturbed by what he saw.
Yeah, he realized later that he fucked up, and you know what? He did a terrible thing. He needs to go to prison, and he needs to pay for his crime. But that is a case that hopefully, I don't believe, like some people are like, oh, we should kill him. I don't believe it's the death sentence for that. Hopefully he will be able to learn, never do it again, and be a productive member of society.
I don't know.
That's the hope.
I don't know if he can learn from, but it's...
Well, see, that's,
it's a brain impulse.
See, I mean, everyone's a dumb fucking kid. Like, it makes you wonder if you were in a similar situation, with a similar upbringing, what would you have done? I think I would know I would make the choice to not do it. And that's the thing, is like, the whole thing is that you go to prison, you do your time, and when you come out, you never go back. And that's the hope there, is that, it's why I really like about Oregon DOC, is that they're not, compared, I hear other prison systems like California, all they do is just warehouse people. They have a recidivism rate, about 70% of people that go in come back. It's somewhere that high, I don't know the exact number, but it's like, that's crazy. We're like 24%. Because you try and do something, these people did some horrific things, they hurt a lot of people. When they get out, you don't want them to be angry and bad and continue to hurt people. You want to try to have them turn their life around.
Do you think the education programs are responsible in Oregon for that?
I think it's nice. Like, a lot of these, a lot of the crimes that I read about, at least in my, man, drugs really destroy people. Like, you have situations where 12-year-olds are, their parents are giving 12-year-old kids meth. And stuff like no joke, like, hey, here you go, little Johnny. I know it's Christmas. Here's a bag of meth.
Why do you think there's like a lower recidivism rate in Oregon?
Like I said, I believe it is the, making people have GEDs. I like the idea that we're doing trade programs, giving people electricians, making people like plumbing, getting people like some good area to jump off the ground. And there, like I said, it's not perfect. There are definitely areas where I think we can improve. I think it's definitely like once you get out of prison, if you don't have family, like where do you go? It's like my dad has a family friend who just recently got out of Coffee Creek, which is the women's facility. Mm-hmm. She is in a halfway house that is run by a church, and they're going to charge her $2,500 to stay for a month. And they don't need it all right this second. They'll get her later. But it's like, that's so much money. That's food, and she has to stay there for at least a month. And they have to live by her rules, and she has to be... there's a lot of things there.
Damn.
But it's like, that's a lot of money. Granted, that's a contract. That's not the state doing it.
So it's going to be like an installment thing?
All right, they'll charge her X number of dollars. And it's like, man, that's rough. Like, I think that's the area where, I wish there was more money. But just like with Oregon, how it is right now, we have a budget deficit. It was like $1.2 billion this year. There's, that's not going to help. It's like getting out of prison and being able to be in a safe place, or, there's so many halfway houses just full of druggies that are continuing to come back and forth. That's the point. It's like the first 60 days or whatever is when people are going to figure out whether they're coming back or not, whether they're going back to jail. And if they're in a horrible situation and they can't find a job, like, that's the main thing, is like not finding employment. And that's why I really like the fact that they have to get a GED, is that, if you don't have a high school diploma in the state of Oregon and you're trying to find a job, like, good luck. You're not finding anything.
If you, Zack Shannon, ran a halfway house and pretend, of course it is in real life, but pretend money wasn't an object, and it was your mission to have a 0% among the people that stay at your halfway house recidivism rate, so that none of them go back to prison. That was your mission and responsibility. What would you do? How would you run it? What programs or what?
I mean, one thing I would try to do at the very least is try and talk to local businesses that have a lot of turnover rates in their employees, things like grocery stores and stuff. Like, hey, I got a guy coming out of prison. He's trying to get a fresh start. Try and work with local employers to try and just get these people a job. Because, sometimes when you get out of prison, Like, the majority of the people in prison, even if they're just unit orderlies, want to work. You'd be, wages are really low, and that's awful. And we can talk about that in a bit. But one thing is, they just, even for free, some of these people, they want to work, just get their mind off things. Like, they need to be able to do something. People that are just sitting there and just twiddling their thumbs, like, most of those people aren't going to do good. Yeah. So if we get them doing something quote unquote good, get them in a job, make them proud that they're doing something. Like that is a big thing I would really like. And also it's just like, sometimes you need to get away from the people you think are friends and family. Sometimes they're the worst.
Here is a follow-up question.
Yeah.
You're going to these businesses and one of these inmates that you're trying to help did something awful. Let's say they just finished their 10-year sentence for rape. And you're trying to get them a job while also trying to take into account the safety of local businesses or employees.
So the thing is,
what would you do?
Realize is that, oh God, I don't know the exact numbers, like 25 or 15% of all Oregon. There's a lot of people who've been in prison. There's people around us right now that you probably don't know that spent 4 or 5 years in prison. It's that you're going to see someone every single day, multiple people probably, that have been in prison for multiple different crimes. And it's just...
Tim Allen was in prison.
Tim Allen was?
Yeah, he was a cocaine dealer.
Fucking what? Like, tool time wasn't enough? Like, he had a little side business or something?
This was before tool time. This was in the 70s.
Jeez. But, I mean, it's... So, the one thing... I used to have a different view of public safety until I actually got in the area. So, we are not... we as the officers are not punishment. That's one thing that I'm really glad, like, the stigma of prison guards just going in and beating people... Holy shit, if we fucking did anything like that, there's so many cameras around, we'd be fired. Oh god, we'd be sued, it'd be really bad. Not to say it never happens, but
Are you glad that there's cameras?
Yeah, they're everywhere, man. We can get to that here in a minute. But it's like the prison time is the punishment. We as a society, I feel like there's a lot of people that realize, like, or think that once they commit the crime, for life they're blacklisted. And I used to somewhat think that with people, but now once you do the crime, you take the punishment, and once you're out, I feel like you should get a second chance. And a lot of these, now after that, then we can start talking about, whether this guy, he's done it again and again and again, that's an issue. But, I feel like even with horrific crimes, some people deserve a second chance.
They deserve a second chance, but how do you balance...
it's going to happen whether you want to or not. There is no balance.
But
people are going to
How do you balance that with safety concerns at local businesses? Like, if a guy asks, what did they do? They're
going to get a job at the business no matter what. Like, they're going to try and find a job in this area, or they're going to rape a person. Like, that's kind of the rape or sell drugs or do something. They're, with the Oregon, or is it the federal? They're banning the box or banning the. Are you a convicted felon?
I think that's a Portland thing.
There's just I think it's an Oregon thing. I need to look at that again. But either way,
so you don't think that employers should know if the
No, the thing is, when you go into the interview, they can ask you. There's nothing that says they can't ask you, and you have to be truthful about it. Mm-hmm. The only thing they're trying to get rid of is right at the checkbox, before the interview, because that's I had mixed feelings on it. Though I do like the idea of meeting the person in general, because like if you're convicted of a crime, you've served your time. You, at least by law, you're rehabilitated, or at the very least, this is now your time for life to start anew. Mm-hmm. You need to be able to get your feet off the ground. And, getting into that interview, like, hey, I did this. I served my time. I'm just trying to do better. I feel like people just toss out an application once they realize they've been in prison or something like that. And at the end of the day, it's your right to not hire if you don't want that. But I really think, like, sometimes giving people a chance will surprise you. I've met some people that have done some bad things, and I think, or at least I really hope so, that when they get out, I think they've turned their life around.
It's maybe Maybe I'm biased. I can't
like I said,
imagine
it's different from
if I knew someone was a rapist, I can't imagine wanting to associate with them at all.
See, like I said, it's very different from once you've been in the system, and then like, oh, they're just inmates. But once you've actually seen the stories and the faces, you're like, again, it's empathy, not sympathy. Sympathy is emotion. You shouldn't have any emotional connection to these guys. You should be, kind of like, hey, these guys in a shitty situation. He's learned, he has proven, at least in our system, that he has done X, Y, and Z, and that he's ready to rehabilitate.
How do you distinguish between some? How do you make a distinction between someone who's earnestly regretful and someone who's trying to game you and game the system? Like, oh man, I've learned my lesson.
There's people that you're never going to know 100%. That's just how it is. We have counselors, we have people that had 20, 30 years of experience, and sometimes you'll never know. But most people have a really hard time lying like that. Little shit like that, but when it comes to that kind of stuff, there are people that would definitely lie and do that, but a lot of people have a really, really tough time. Over the years, like I've been there for 2 years now, and there's some people I've met from, I'm known, I've been in contact with for that long, and you can see a change within those guys. So, like, we have one guy on the unit, so I'm not going to really say names, but one guy on the unit, so he was at EOCI about 4 years ago, and he assaulted a staff member. They got into a pretty good tussle. He got sent to IMU, which is the intensive management unit. It's kind of like a perm seg. It's where the worst go. He came back, had a rough time. One of my first units I was on, he was there. And over the last 2 years, he's now we have a dog program where they train seeing eye dogs and guide dogs and things like that. And, 2 years ago, he would never have been able to be on that. But now he's one of the best guys they have. And it took a while, and it took a long time for him to figure it out. But I think eventually something clicked in his head of like, oh shit, I only got a couple more years left. I have a kid. A lot of these people have kids, and I feel like that's their, you really have to be like, this is your incentive. Like, hey, your wife, your family, family's a really big incentive to do better. People that don't have anyone are definitely gonna have a tougher time going back. But when you have a kid, you're like, hey, I need to figure out something when I get out to support my kid. And you have people that are making $20 a month, like, orderly jobs, making $20, $27 a month, which isn't a lot. And they're giving the whole thing to their kid, every month. It's not a lot of money. What's the kid going to do with it? But the person is working as hard as they can to make sure that that kid every month has that $27 check. More or less. But like I said, there are definitely people that, I say it's like an 80-20 split. It could be more or less, but that's just my experience of people that 20% they're just going to cause trouble and keep having issues, and 80% of the people that are realize they fucked up and that they're going to do better.
I don't know if you will have an answer for this or not, because this is like probably going deep into your mind. But
fuck. Ha! What are we? Do we need to go deeper again, Jeff?
Oh no! I'm curious. You have an interesting job.
We need to go deeper.
We need to go deeper. No, but you have an interesting job that a lot of people probably want to know, like how your mind even works in a situation like that.
I'm a crazy motherfucker.
But from my own perspective, and I don't know if no two people are exactly alike, but I tend not to have empathy for rapists or people that intentionally inflict harm on others. I have more for like idiots that get. I have more empathy for the
dumb
idiots,
people,
but people that get drunk. Not a lot more but I have a little bit more for people that get drunk and like crash their cars and kill someone. Because even though it was really stupid, it was a mistake. But people that intentionally go out of their way to kill or to harm, like sexually abuse people, I can't have empathy for those people. And you said that you used to look at them differently, but now you're...
It's a difference from when you...
Hang on a second, hang on. You said you used to look at them differently. But then you come to a point in your life where you can look at people who have intentionally harmed people in various ways, specifically and intentionally. you view them with empathy now more than you used to.
Mm-hmm.
What was the moment or what was the general phenomenon that caused your mind and your heart to change to a more empathetic feeling towards?
So I don't know if there was just like an aha moment like that. It's just, so the more you're on a unit and you see these guys, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, you start knowing their patterns, their hopes, their dreams. Some people talk to you less, some people want to talk to you more. A lot of people view you and a lot of the other staff as just like normal people. You are normal. We want to be like you. It's kind of weird to say, but and they want to talk to you because they want to find some kind of normalcy back in their life. And you just start, getting to know people, and, some people you start realizing, like, the regret they have for what they caused and, the crimes that they did. And just over time, I just start kind of getting that empathy of, like, I start to understand your situation. This sucks. I see you're making an effort to make a change. Like, you're not just, there are definitely people. So in the early 90s, they passed a measure. I can't remember what measure it is. The number, but it's where every inmate has to have some kind of programming. So you can't just sit on your bunk and just do your time. You have to have a church thing. You got to have work. You got to have something that you're doing. And most of these guys are trying to take jobs just so they can try and find some kind of normalcy, and just, it's like I said, I don't think there was any kind of aha moment. It's just, you see some people
it's just
really trying to make an effort to change, and those are the people I have empathy for. Is that I can over the last 2 years, I've seen a change in you. I've seen you try real hard. I've seen that guy try to pick a fight with you in the day room, and before you would have attacked him, but now you're trying to work through. You're taking all the anger management classes, and you're trying to go turn the other cheek, even though that guy's trying to antagonize you. And I've seen that with a couple guys, where they got just a person's like, "Fuck you, motherfucker! I'm gonna kick your fucking ass," and the other guy's trying to calm, mellow, and trying to bring down the situation. Where literally when I first started, I saw him within like a week just like trying to kill another guy in the fucking dining hall. You see people make changes, and not everyone is successful in those changes, but there are definitely people I have seen that have made a good change. And like I said, that's not something you can see in just 6 months of working there, but in the 2 years, I'm starting to finally really see people changing. And those are the people I have empathy for. I don't have empathy for everybody. There's some truly horrific people that have done bad things and they don't give a damn. But there are some people that are really trying to change, even if it's just, I'm going to clean this unit and I'm going to clean these showers the best I can so everybody, people trying to do things for other people they never would have done before. Like I said, it gives me a little hope for them, and I really hope that when they leave, they do better. And that's kind of all we can really hope for is, when someone leaves, I'm like, man, I hope I never see you again. But I mean in the best way possible, and they know that. I hope they never come back here again. And like I said, I've already seen a couple guys come back. It's not all perfect, but there's definitely some I really think will never come back.
So, taking it to a different level, addressing prison stereotypes.
Okay, let's do it. This is fun.
Cavity searches.
We do them. So
have you done them?
So only medical staff are allowed to actually poke inside people. So it's not something we do all the time. But
so you don't do them personally?
Don't do them personally, no. We can overwatch them. And like I said, so in segregation, our segregation is about 150 beds or something like that. I was in there personally for this, but we had a guy so we have a chair that it's called the boss chair. You can sit in it. When you sit on it, if you have anything metal on your body, it'll start beeping. So they have beep, 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 beep. Nothing's on the guy. He's got shit inside him. He brought in, they did cavity search and all that stuff. They found razor blades on him, tattoo needles, a tattoo gun up his butt, colored pencils in him, and a bunch of other things. Those are rare though. Yeah, most of the time they put him in just a room, and they turn off the water in the toilet, and they sift through to make sure that there's nothing in there. Because people will shove stuff up their butt and try and bring it into segregation.
Oh, God.
But we do more strip searches than that, and like one of the ones had to bend over and cough. When they bend over and cough, most of the time, if there's anything in there, it falls out.
Wow.
Like, bend over and cough. What's the color pencil falling out of your ass for?
I'm an artist.
There's a lot of good artists in prison. When you have a lot of time,
absolutely.
oh my God. I see
sure.
some. Echo 3 last year, no one was able to figure out who it was, but they made like a 2-foot tall Christmas tree out of like paper mache, like a 3D, like coming out different areas. They made little presents. It was phenomenal. But more. Let's go.
Institutionalized people.
There's definitely some people that
Like Brooks from you haven't seen that in a long time, but they become so dependent on the prisons that they can't make it in the outside world.
Definitely there's some people that could not function on the outside, and prison, some people have status in prison. They got a good job, they got good housing, and they're really scared. And those are mostly the people that don't have good family support, I would say, is that when they leave, they have no one. And like we can open up savings accounts and stuff like that so people can save money a little bit. Mm-hmm. So when they leave, they actually have money. But even then, there's a lot of people that are definitely scared to leave. Like there's some people that are ecstatic and some people that are terrified.
Who's the longest serving prisoner that you have?
Jeez, I mean, I know of one guy we've had since the 60s. I think it's 60s or 70s. That's like one guy. I think another guy I know from like the 90s, but he's been in and out since like the 50s.
Oh, wow.
So you have something like that, but most people I would say are within the last 15 years.
Oh, wow.
Most people are from like 2000 earlier, a little later.
There was a guy that died in prison in 2012 in Chicago. His name was William Herons. He'd be dead in 2012. He'd been in prison since 1946.
Jesus Christ.
So that's like almost 70 years.
There's not a lot of people that have been there for that long, because if they've been there longer than 20 years, they did something horrific and they're in there for life. And then, so we have different custody levels. We have minimum, medium, maximum. And mostly that's based on violence levels, like how much of a threat are you to the population, the officers, all that good stuff. So a lot of the people that are in there for that long, a lot of them would be at OSP in the max, the high security. So in the medium, like I said, you get kind of mixes of both. But yeah, I think the longest I've seen is like 69.
Wow.
So that's a long time. You can only
so 1969?
Yeah.
So one of the Manson people, huh?
they keep trying to get out, but they never can.
The age of Aquarius.
So what else you got for me?
Shower soap.
Shower and soap. So the showers at Eastern EOCI are next to the officer station, and inmates are allowed to shower in underwear if they want.
Good, I would.
And it is rape happens in prison. It does not happen anywhere near as often as people think. It is a thing, though. So there's a big federal initiative called PREA, Prison Elimination Act, and we have to be in compliance with it or we get fined. Mm-hmm. And a lot of things are like the showers, have to be, there's a wall in the showers and they have to be like up to the waist and stuff, but they have to be viewable by the officer at all time, kind of thing. So with how old our place is, we can't be in compliance as well as we want to be, but we're still very good on that. So, like I said, if you're on the cell units, to the right of the officer stations, the showers, you can be looking in there and see people the whole time.
Have you had to intercede in something happening like that?
I personally have never. I've come across mutual. So a lot of people just, there's gay guys in prison or just guys that are just looking to get a hand job or whatever.
For the stay.
Yeah, I've never seen.
Is that the thing, like gay for the stay, where they're straight on the inside?
I mean, it's just like it's just. There's a lot of guys there. There's a stigma against masturbation and stuff like that, which I think kind of sucks because guys got to release shit. So most of that stuff happens in the shower, so you look in the showers, but you don't always look. You know what I'm trying to say? So there are the guys like that. I've come across inmates who have been doing it mutual, you still have to send them to segregation because you got to figure it out. You got to make sure no one's being extorted. There is no consensual sex in prison. That is something that is not allowed within prison. Anytime it happens, no. But there's different, levels of how much trouble you get in compared to.
But
you still get in trouble, but nowhere near as much compared to rape. Because then.
But what about mono?
Mono? I haven't seen an outbreak or something like that.
No, I mean self gratification.
Oh, that happens all the time.
But that's
you're
not
doing
disallowed?
tier checks. So you're doing tier checks, and it's a good day when you don't see someone masturbate. Though,
hey, buddy, how's your day?
On all the doors in the institution, when they come onto a unit, when a female officer comes in the unit, there's a doorbell next to it, and you ring the doorbell that shows, hey, there's a female on the unit. So, no, you got 8 hours of not being able to jack off, basically.
Get out of here, biatch.
Yeah, you can't do that.
So the women guards, I guess that shouldn't surprise me, but it's it really intimidating for a female guard in a man prison?
I would say for some of them, yeah. Like, we had a woman in our class, I think she was, like, the most kick-ass motherfucker that we had.
She sounds amazing.
Yeah, she did great.
For women to be guard men like that.
So, actually, you'd be surprised, there's more, percentage-wise, there's more female correctional officers than there are police officers.
Really?
And I don't know the whole reason why, but we have a lot of female staff. And, definitely some of them have trouble. Sometimes it's harder because we had in my situation with the person in my class, within the first 2 weeks, they had an inmate that fell in love with her and stuff and tried to write in her notes and stuff. And you're like, no, this isn't happening. They had to transfer him out and stuff like that. So those things happen. Yeah. So those things happen. Mm. But, for the most part, people are very respectful to the women.
Good.
Women have less assaults. I know one instance of a female staff member being assaulted in the last 5 or 6 years. She wasn't able to come back, but occasionally I know another officer who was attempted rape twice and was able to fight him off.
Okay,
it happens. Yes, in prison.
No. The same person did it twice, or
the same person had happened to her twice.
Okay.
She's been here for 30 years. And she had happened, once was 20 years ago, and another was 15. It happens, but it's less likely that there's a great respect for the female, and her instance where she was raped twice, each time another inmate, never count on it, but another inmate came to save her because there's a really big respect for the female staff members.
I think
each time. I'm sorry, I gotta say, someone came in there and was like, no, motherfucker, you're not raping. And fucking one of the gay fucking broke his jaw and stuff. So.
Oh, man.
You never count on it, but, when it comes to the women, you don't mess with the women officers. At least not physically.
That's amazing. I think there is another brings me to another stereotype about prisons that I've heard. And this one, because I'm petty, I hope. And also, true.
One thing I need to clarify a lot of stuff. So, Oregon's considered one of the better prison systems in the United States. Mm-hmm. We have a good system. Mm-hmm. It's not perfect, nowhere near as perfect, but we have one of the betters. And I hear stories about California, New Mexico, and Florida, and they just make me cringe.
Really?
So, I can only talk about at least in our system and what I have, but there are some systems out there that are really bad. Alabama is another one where they're just warehousing people and stuff. So, some of these stigmas might be a little more. It might be more so at other places than ours, but
obviously California is not a red state; that's a blue state. But do you think there's it's kind of along political lines? There's Oregon an exception?
So one thing I do notice, I think the more liberal states are more willing to. Try more alternative methods of locking them up and throwing the key. It just doesn't work. The incentive rates just go up. The more that you are proactive, and I think getting the GEDs is good and stuff like that. That proves that people do not come back.
Gotcha.
People still come back, but they come back in way less numbers than other states. And even though I lean more red in my views, I definitely some of the blue states I think are better at that. Not all. I hear mixed bags about New York, for example. Mm-hmm. But I know Oregon's one of the leaders nationwide when it comes to prison. So I don't know if we are just unique or not, but we do pretty good.
Oregon, come for the prisons.
Yeah, come for the prison. I always hear these stories of they had a guy who was coming up and he was delivering meth and he was in prison in California for 5 or 6 years. He came up to Oregon just for the weekend and got fucking caught selling meth and he's like, man, this place is great. I never want to go back to California.
Damn.
We had another inmate. So occasionally we do interstate compacts and if we had an inmate from New Jersey that came to Oregon. He was a big gang member. He was targeted in New Jersey. They had to move him out for safety. We gave them a guy, they gave us a guy kind of thing. And he was telling one of my sergeants before, this is a couple years before I came on, it was like, man, I could sleep in the yard. I can lay back and take a nap and not have to worry. Where if I did anything like that in New Jersey, I'd be dead. So, we don't have as many of the hardcore gangs as some of these other states have.
So there's not shivings that go on at your place?
So in the 2 years I've been there, we have found weapons, but only two guys have ever been cut by razor blades.
Anyone killed when you've been there?
No.
Wow.
So in May 2014, we had the only fatal shooting in in Oregon DOC history.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only shooting we've had. Prior to when the late 70s, early 80s, I can't remember the exact timeline. Before that, it was just prisons.
Mm-hmm.
Then we became the Oregon DOC, and everything changed in the 1980s, including us. All the reforms, how we did shit. And since then, like I said, we've only had one. But before that, we've had 40, 50. I mean, it was the Wild West of prisons before then.
Do you ever have artists come in? Like Johnny Cash did a famous show at Folsom.
We have, I don't know how famous they are, but we have a lot of people. We had a band that came through that was, they're based on the East Coast and they play in all the prisons on the West Coast, and they're pretty popular there. They play a lot of 70s and 80s music. So we have performers that will come through. We had a circus come through. It was like a Circus Olay type thing.
How do prisoners react compared to a regular people out on the outside?
I mean, most of the guys...
Are they more enthusiastic?
To see some of that stuff, definitely. But you would be, if you were dropped in there randomly and didn't know what it was, but you would almost forget it's a prison.
Wow.
Sometimes the way people act, not to say everyone, it's a prison. Obviously, it's a prison, but it's so calm and everyone knows what they're doing. Like I said, I think most people are just trying to get through without an issue. Really, sometimes you do. It almost feels like it's a summer camp.
Really.
At times, which is how people act, because people act like humans. You think all these inmates are terrible and they're crazy and blah blah blah, but they're people. They have some really awful faults to them, but I hear please and thank you more in prison than I think I do out in the real world.
Damn.
And that's weird.
Do you think that's because of your position of authority? They feel more different towards you?
I mean, that place, it's all about respect. You give people respect, you get it back. So, I'm very, I think, friendly, just person in nature.
Yeah, you are.
So I go, when I tell people, I'm like, thank you very much. I appreciate, every time an orderly cleans the showers, I'm like, thank you for doing that. And I think that relieves some kind of tension. Mm-hmm. And you have a lot of people you're welcome. Can we get some ice out of the icebox? Yes, you can. Thank you. If you go in there like a hard ass, you're not going to see that. But it just, it really depends on the officer. So everyone's got to follow the rules. Some people are a little more lenient than others. Even officers are humans. Not everyone is perfect when it comes to that stuff. But, some people have better rapport than others. And I feel I say I'm friendly, but I'm not friends with them, or I'm strict on some of my rules, but it's your attitude with how if I go in there hey, you motherfucking inmate, you need to fucking clean the showers, or hey, is it your turn to clean the showers tonight? Would you please do that right now?
So the tone has a great deal over how people
definitely
act.
It's just like I said, it's treating them when you have your workers, for example, treating them as people that have a job. Mm-hmm. And that they need to do it instead of just, hey, you're an inmate, we're forcing you to do this. Do
you remember the movie The Green Mile?
Yes.
Have you seen it recently, or do you remember
it's about 6 or 7 years, but yeah.
Do you remember it fairly well?
Somewhat.
Do you remember Percy, the power abusing prison guard who abused the prison?
So,
have you seen any prison guards do that in your jail?
So we had a new guy that started up 6 or 7 months ago. He came from the Florida DOC. We didn't realize till afterwards. So he resigned, and that's kind of what we went with him. After we were like, wow, why is this guy such a bitch? And we went back and realized he was going to be fired. But, some people... with him in particular, he got up on a unit and he was like, hey, I'm going to strip search you in the shower in front of all these people. And you're just like, what the fuck? You don't do that. And this was right before he was fired, he was walking through the day where he got relief for his break. He was going to go out for a smoke break. And the inmates, I can't remember what happened, but they were laughing at him for something. And he was like, I'm going to go outside and smoke a cigarette. And when I get home tonight, I'm going to have sex with my girlfriend. As he's doing like a twirl, he's telling everybody in the day room. And then he trips over his own fucking feet, falls flat on his face, and everybody gets up and they start fucking applauding. Like, no joke. That's
the funniest thing I've ever heard in my life.
And this is right, he was fucking fired after that, but there's definitely some people...
So he was taunting them, I'm free and you're not. Basically.
Yeah, and that, you don't fucking do that. You want to die, goddammit? Like, there's
what an asshole.
So, there is a real big culture of, you know what, so things like, you're not supposed to bring a cell phone in the facility. Yeah, if you do that, my first thought isn't to run to a sergeant, it's to tell the guy, hey, you need to bring that up front. Small stuff you deal with officer and officer. If they continue to do shit, you do that. But when it comes to like use the force or stuff like that, has it happened? Probably. In my experience, though, people are really good of like catching people before shit happens. Like we had a sergeant, inmates walking through segregation, and just gets a fucking loogie and spits in the sergeant's eye. Like so, most inmates have Hep C and shit like that. So he just fucking lost it and started going after the inmate, and then, officers had to hold him back. Sometimes you will let red line and stuff like that. When you're like, I was assaulted once and I had a moment where I could have curb stomped the guy and I decided not to.
We'll get back to that.
We'll get back to that. So, I mean, there are times where, like, fucking, if you're in a fight, you're fighting for your life, man, you will red line sometimes. But there's a really good culture of reporting when it comes to that. Mm-hmm. I've seen an officer who has, or at least heard of, I did not witness it myself, had a really bad use of force, and people reported it, and the officer went on leave, and he fired. And, the good old boy system, while still there in some things, on things like that, and like sex and stuff, like bringing shit in the facility and like hurting people, man, that's not as much as it used to be.
So there's not like a blue wall, so to speak, that protects guards, and at least in your facility.
At least, and so the 2 years I have been there, we have one incident that I know of, and that guy was fired. I don't know if they're pursuing charges or whatnot. I don't know how bad it was. I just know one incident like that did. And from what I've heard of other instances that have been pretty good on that, it just... Some of the new guys, they're really good at catching it early now, I think. You can really tell, hey... So, like, back when, before, Oregon DOC and stuff like that, you just used to hire, like, fucking meatheads. People that couldn't think for themselves. Like, you had to look big and tough, and you had to beat the shit out of inmates when they attacked, and so all these kind of things. Now, like, you have, like, 5'2", or... We have a 4'9" officer, and most of the job is verbal. You can talk most of these people down from anything. Wow. There are fights, and like if you get assaulted, you have body arms to try and get people up there to help you. But most of this job is like, I'm a big guy, but like, I'm verbal. Like most of the job is verbal. You don't need these you're looking to hire smarter people. Yeah. You don't hire the meathead that doesn't think anymore. You're hiring people that can think for themselves. And I feel like that's a stigma that is still in corrections. When you think of prison guard, you think of a big meathead. Mm-hmm. But when I say corrections officer, I'm thinking someone that's, a generally smart person. Like a lot of people in our facility have college education.
You do?
Yeah. So you're not. I mean, granted, you can just get out of high school, but there's still some really smart people in there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of smart people that didn't get a college education.
Yeah, I mean I met some of the dumbest people I've ever met in college.
Really?
Yeah, it's just. There's different smarts. Yeah. And sometimes you can be book smart and be the dumbest when it comes to people.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And it's like, so I've seen some of those people come through our facility, college education,
Sheldon
grade with
Coopers of the world.
math. Yeah, and that just can't talk to a person to save their life.
Yeah.
And those are, we can't have those officers. We're looking for people that are like street smarts. The people that can talk and understand, or they're looking for integrity for the most part. Your word in that place, like your reputation spreads.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is the officer that never follows through with what he says. You can't promise people some things,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like some things like, hey, can you do this for me? It's like, I can't promise you, but I'm going to try.
Tell me one thing. I want to know. There is a theory that prisoners tend to really hate or inmates. Apologize.
Yeah.
Tends to really hate other inmates who are in for harming women and children.
So sex offenders are treated the worst by the inmate population. On the east side, there's less gangs with the dorm unit. They're still there, but on the west side especially, they can only, we try our best to stop it, but, so most of the time they don't tell us. So, they're like, they can only shower in the mornings, they can only go to yard at this time, they can't sit in the TV room, and they're like, hey, you have to give us X amount of canteen items, which canteens like where they buy their food, their razor,
Mm-hmm.
shaving stuff, anything like that. You have to give us that much, a week, or we're gonna kick your ass. And some people will stand up for themselves, and others won't. And kind of how it is. And most of the sex offenders are kind of have to band together. Even if they don't like each other, they have just for survival.
So, do they hold each other's sex offenses against each other? Like, oh my god, I can't believe you did that.
But for most of the inmates, especially in the incentive housing, which incentive housing is basically do good for long enough, you get more privileges.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those guys don't even ask each other what they did anymore.
Really?
Yeah, like most of the time, just they don't care. Everyone's done something really shitty. Do you really want to know what the person next to you has done? The next to you.
Can you live with that?
Do you want to know what your bunkmate's done?
Oh god.
Yeah. Do you want to tell them what you have done?
Yeah, I imagine that's another thing.
Most people don't ask. But, you get paperwork of what you did when you come to prison, and, a lot of, at least especially on the gang side, is like, hey, what did you do? Give me your papers. And, some inmates can lie their way out of it, some others can't. And you can kind of tell who the sex offenders are. Like, when I walk into a unit, I'm not familiar with people. I was on a unit called Alpha 1 the other day, which is one I'm not on that often. On the other day, I had some new guys, and I'm like, you're a sex offender, you're a sex offender, you're a sex offender. You just kind of tell now.
Wow.
The way they act, the way they look around, they're scared. They walk out of their cell, they're looking both ways, and they're looking constantly to make sure no one's coming after them. And then who the quote unquote guys that run the unit, when they just walk out of their cell and they're Puff Daddy, and they know they look like they're in charge.
Mm-hmm.
And you gotta break that, investigations and informants, and throw those guys in segregation for doing shit like that. But you just kind of get to know.
How did you know? Just repetitive, constant.
It's just a lot of people who are in for the same crime just start acting the same.
I gotcha.
Like I said, it's when a guy walks out of the cell and when he's looking around him almost too much. Either he's expecting to be assaulted. Mm-hmm. So I'm assuming either, most of the time I would say that's because he's a sex offender, or when a cell or your battery's almost dead on your phone.
That's all right. Let's keep that.
When you have a group of 4 inmates in a cell, and they all only want to come out of the shower at the exact same time.
Mm.
It kind of says, okay, these guys don't want to be targeted on their own, which means they, there's 4 shower heads for them. They want to wait till everyone's done so they can go together and be in numbers. Or, these guys are staying in their cell more than usual. You kind of start picking up on things.
Is there like a thing where a corrections officer, like, all right, stand in line, and then all the inmates come out of their cells or condos?
So we have a
roll call. That's what it is. Is there a roll call?
We got count.
Count.
So they have to be on their bunk, and we go bunk by bunk counting the inmates, this inmate's here, this inmate's here, and then we call control, we tell them, hey, this is how many inmates we have in the unit. They verify the number. We send out the sheet to control, and they verify bunk by bunk which inmate is where. So if you have inmates in the dining hall, you have to have out counts where you're counting each inmate and names. You're setting them up, and you're making sure every inmate's, where they are. We do count 12:10 in the morning, which is so everyone's got to do at least 5 counts a day. Every institution can dictate when they do counts, but the only count everyone does at the same time is at 12:10. That's when you do the census count for the entire state. And then we have a 2:30 count, we have a 5 a.m. count, we have an 11:30, 4:30, 8:45, and 11. So we have multiple counts. Some of them, like the 11:30 and the 4:30 count, are sit-up counts, which means you have to be sitting up on your bunk, and we have to make visual contact with you. The rest of the time you can be sleeping or doing whatever. But it's to make sure that we know, those inmates are there and no one's escaped. Because we've had one escape in the OCI. We caught the guy within a couple days, but we have a pretty good record so far of not having people get out. But it happens. Those guys over the summer that escaped from, New York.
Keep talking.
They escaped from New York. It's pretty... we just got to be on our toes because with that instance, it was a staff member that helped them get out. And as much as I want to trust everyone, some people have a price.
Yeah.
And that kind of sucks is when it's someone that you've worked with for years. We had an officer that brought in protein powder.
Wow.
Once. Why would you...
You're not allowed to...
why would you give an inmate $10 in protein powder or whatever and lose your really good job with benefits? He was fired. Why would you do that? Sometimes I don't have the answer to that.
So protein powder is contraband?
Well, I mean, bringing in anything that they're not allowed to just buy off canteen.
Gotcha.
If you bring in something, you can't just bring it. I can't, I have a pack, I bring gum with me. I can't just give an inmate gum.
Oh, gotcha.
It's not there. It's mine. I can't just share food with them. You don't bring things to people.
Because that violates a certain separation.
You don't do favors for people.
Oh, I gotcha.
You have to be this person that's very, separated. You can't give... You have to be intimate with these people, but also separated at the same time. You can't be doing favors for people. You can't be bringing in stuff for people. Okay, you bring in gum. Now you bring in this and that. And, hey, can I bring a uniform where I can walk out the door? It's happened. People, yeah. You know what? You want to talk to inmates. You want to get to know people. But there's the story called Downing the Duck is where, inmates will work over the officer for over a year. Hey, man, get to know them and, I want to talk to you. Oh, man, I used to go fishing when I was a kid. And people build bonds with these people. And then, hey, look, I have all this shit on you and I'm going to get you fired if you don't do stuff for me. And one of the stories we know, I say, Downing the Duck, the officer, after 2 years of knowing this inmate and stuff, eventually, brought him shit and all this stuff. And he's like, hey, I'm going to tell everyone. He was like, oh, no, don't do that. I'm going to lose my job. Gave the inmate a uniform. The inmate walked right out the front door.
And this was your prison?
No, not my prison. This is a prison back east. But,
oh, wow.
It happens sometimes. We have an inmate at my prison who did walk out the front door dressed as a lady.
Really?
Yeah, they had OSP, I think they had like a drama thing going on. And a guy took the wig and stuff. And he, when he was younger, he looked a little more feminine. And he put a wig on. He walked out the door with people watching the play.
Wow.
Yeah, so I mean...
That's amazing. You got to admire...
It happens.
They're breaking the law, but you have to admire the genius.
No, yeah, exactly. It's... I was on my so every year we have to do annual training, just kind of refresh and stuff like that. And one of my captains was like, we have an inmate who did this. Fuck that guy. But that is brilliant, and we have a lot of smart people. Like, a lot of these guys are here for, some of these guys are here for 25 years for life, and all they have time is to just figure out how to beat the system.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we have a pretty good system going on, but nothing's 100%, and it never will be. Like I said, we've had one escape.
What precautions do you take to prevent being down in the duck?
On the duck, honestly, it's just when I leave that place, I don't think of anyone.
You don't think, that
I don't think, that's the thing is... I'm saying that's the separation between sympathy and empathy. When you start getting emotional and you're sympathizing with people, you become too attached, in my opinion.
But
when you empathize...
intellectual rather than an emotional.
Yeah, it's just like, hey, I can recognize that guy's in a shitty situation. I can feel sorry for him. But at the end of the day, he made his choice, and I'm not going to... do you have, they call them chocolate hearts? The officers are just like, oh, you poor dears, let me... Oh, man, there there's an officer. So they told us in the academy. I don't know his. So we have something called BCC. It's not necessarily the academy, but it's our 2-month schooling thing, or a month and a half schooling thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the story of the officer used to get the inmates together and do prayer groups on the unit, and he tried to baptize them and stuff. He didn't last that long, but it's like, people that will, again, bring things for these guys, like, oh, you poor guy in here for double homicide. You
Isn't
seem
that
like a nice guy.
a violation when the officer's leading a prayer group?
It is. You need, like I said, you need to. We have religious activities, all that kind of stuff that
Well,
people
of course,
go to, but it's you can't do that. You're the officer. You need to be.
That's like a separation between church and state, since you're a representative of the state, right?
I mean, technically that doesn't exist in the state of Oregon, but it's
really?
just that's outside of the scope of our employment. As officers, that's not what we're supposed to do, and it's like. People become chocolate hearts like that. You don't need to go in there and be an asshole like, hey, all you motherfuckers are inmates. Fuck all you guys. I'm gonna be a badass.
You need to be calm but in command.
Yeah, right? You calm and in command. That's the main thing. You need to recognize that some of these guys have some shitty situations, but also the fact that they made their choice, and that you're gonna just do the job the best of your ability.
Wasn't one of your guys a Harvard professor?
There was a guy on my unit that was he Harvard? He was some college, I can't remember.
Like an Ivy League though?
I think it was from OSU. I don't think it was Harvard. They wouldn't be here.
But he was a professor?
Yeah, we have people from all walks of life. You have people that are the typical druggies and all that good stuff, and then you have people that have been teaching in college for 40 years and stuff like that. And were the most upstanding citizens until they committed their crime, and what was me and stuff like that. And it's all walks of life: rich people, poor people, educated, non-educated. Granted, the people that are the less educated are the ones that you see most often, the ones committing crimes. But you have rich people and stuff like that. They commit crimes too. It's not.
No one's above the law.
No one's above the law.
People tend to think that rich people get away with it.
We have officers that have been in prison. We've had. State representatives, police officers.
Really? Tell us about the state representatives. That's interesting. Not by name, of course. But
so we don't have a specific unit for them, but there's another prison that has more of those people.
The politicians.
People that have been in office that inmates might recognize and try to kill.
So politicians are at risk if they were
politicians, police officers, corrections officers. Things like if I was convicted of a crime and went to prison, I would not work at, would not be where I'm already at, where people know me.
Let's say
because one, they don't want officers that know me to bring me stuff, and two, they don't want inmates that I have, sent to SAG for reasons to come out and attack me. So it creates, they don't want them to be harmed, but they don't want to when you start attacking former officers, you're gonna start attacking regular officers, and it's kind of a shit show.
Let's say hypothetically...
There's not a lot of them, but there are some.
Let's say hypothetically, you say state representatives...
Alright, you're 14% battery. Right, his battery is low, people.
That's okay.
Are you wrapping this up here shortly?
Alright, cool. One more question. Well, actually, two more. One, fairly recently, our governor... Our former governor fell into some sort of disgrace and supposedly is facing a trial for getting sweet gigs for his lady friend with the power of the office. So let's say he is sentenced to prison. What would be the protocol for the governor of Oregon?
Honestly, they haven't had a situation like that in a while.
That's unprecedented.
I would assume that in a case like that, they might interstate compact him, which means that they would send him to another state. That's what they did with Rod Blagojevich. Some cases are so high profile that it's like it's like the Bunny guys. I know that was a federal case, but for some reason, let's say that became a state case. Everybody knows it. Would they have put him in an Oregon prison? Not sure. Or... It's not 100%. There's so many factors that go into it. I'm not 100%, but I think they would just send him out of state, would be my assumption.
That's what they did with Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich. He's in Colorado right now.
Yeah, I think they would have put him... Was that a federal or state crime? I don't know what they charged him with eventually.
Blagojevich was going to...
I know what he was going to do. I just don't know if they charged him federal, because there was a federal prison.
I'm pretty sure it's a federal crime since it was a federal office, because for the listeners, he was caught on tape
trying
saying
to sell
that he
his
was
the
going
Senate
to.
seat of Barack Obama.
Yep.
So I don't, like I said, I don't know 100%, but my assumption would be he would be either in special housing, not special as in like he gets all the special treatment, but he would just be more separated from the inmate population for his own safety.
I'm sure. I'm sure he.
See, people think like, oh, he's going to go into a cushy minimum and all that. No, he would be treated like everyone else. Probably worse because there's probably a lot of officers that fucking hate him, but
I'm sure.
no. Hey, there's a lot of.
What about like a presidential?
There's easily corruption within the DOC. There's no way there isn't. But when it's found, like the response to it, I at least in the few cases I've seen so far, I feel like they've dealt with it really well.
Good.
There are some though.
What if someone at the presidential level or someone in like the highest?
See, that'd be federal. That would be. I don't know where
federal prison.
I don't know where you could put them. They wouldn't like send them out of the country. You know, sometime at the end of the day, you know, they might send you these places, but you committed the crime and you're an inmate. So they might try and work it a little bit, but at the end of the day, they're not gonna like put you in a special room with cable TV and all that stuff. They're gonna put you with the general population, and you're gonna have to learn to suck it up.
I imagine it'd be like an Air Force base prison or something. Or
I'm not sure exactly, but
that's unprecedented for a president here.
Yeah, I mean, we wish we would have saw it with Nixon, but fuck Ford. So.
Ah, man.
But yeah, that's, you know, at the end of the day, some of that stuff, like I said, you know, they put them in units, but yeah, hey, you got to go, and you're the one that committed the crime, and you know they're not gonna hold your hand the whole time. You're a big boy. You chose your path in life.
You've probably been pretty exposed to the. I'm not even sure if I want to ask this, but I'll go ahead and do it. As a closing, maybe. You've probably been exposed to, since you work with so many inmates, you've probably known the criminal histories of a lot of people. What's one that just hit you the hardest when you heard about it? Like what, like pissed you off?
Sex dungeons are probably ones that
there's more than one.
Yeah, and there was one guy I was reading where he had a dungeon in his basement where he would keep kids locked up, and he had cameras set up, and he had people come and they would film, and you know they would film kids in this BDSM type stuff, and you know they would be selling it, and that stuff's pretty horrific to hit. And it's like I learned that right when like a couple of months after I started, and that's when I started to realize like how are you cordial to some of these people that have done some of these horrific things.
That's what I've asked you.
Like I said, it's like over time I just learned to not, you know, sometimes I just don't read that stuff anymore.
You have to compartmentalize.
You just treat people as, you know, and just treat people like they want to be treated, and if they're nice to me, I'm nice to them. If they're an asshole to me, then I'm more of an asshole to them. You know, but like,
within the restrictions
you try and be
of the
professional.
Job. Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying I go like fuck you, motherfucking inmate. But I mean, if someone's just being a complete dick to me, I'm not gonna like just sit there and take it. I'm gonna sell them in or send them to segregation or do something like that. But yeah, it's like that's one that kind of hit me. There's another one where we had an inmate, not at my facility, but somewhere else, where the person killed two people at different times that came up to their door. They were in the country, and they chopped them up and fed them to their pigs.
Fuck.
And yeah, that was fucking...
That's disturbing.
That's disturbing. And like I said, the contract killer stuff, that one was like a little shocking, but I'm like, the guy's calm enough, it makes sense. You get
hitmen. You have hitmen on your block.
Yeah, that's weird to see. Like those are some of the that one in particular, and there's a lot more. With that one person, I don't want to
have this
repeat because some fucked up shit.
Like
some of the worst stuff is like, so the only way we get to learn how people do this is we have a system, and the counselors input what they did, and sometimes different counselors are more in depth with what they post. So like, I know one person who just like broke down the door to his girlfriend's house, and he raped her, and it was like 35 paragraphs. It was great detail of every word spoken and shit.
That's so disturbing.
And it's like, yeah. And it's like, she was completely and utterly raped, no, and the guy wouldn't stop. And it's just incredible detail. And you're just like, man, fuck that guy. But I'm not gonna just give that guy a hard time because of what I read. Like I said, everyone is
Like
Even if you've
how
read
do you
some bad...
control that? Like, how do you control? Is it just you have to like separate it in your mind, or
That's the best you can do. It's like I said. It's like after, especially some of the beginning of reading, because I'm a really curious person. I love reading all that shit. Like I want to know.
would too.
I would love to know every single person in these issues, but sometimes you just gotta stop and just like, you know what? It's not worth it reading. Like there are definitely
it'd probably wreck your health if you.
There are still people that I'm like, oh, this guy seems super nice. What is he? Oh my god! But you know, sometimes you just gotta stop reading it, or just gotta, if you know what they did, just kind of, you gotta put it in the back burner and just treat them like normal.
Do you get like reports on these people when they come into prison?
Yeah, we get so like when they come in, they the intake centers in Wilsonville is Coffee Creek. It's also the women's facility, but that's a separate building. The counselors, they give them tests and questionnaires, and they talk to them, and they try and figure out what makes them tick and all that stuff, and kind of what programming they're going to need while they're in prison, and their threat scores and all that stuff. And like I said, some counselors are more in detail than others. So like if I read a guy, I'm like, hey, you know, what's this guy's programming? What can, you know, I see this guy is having a hard time. What does he think is going to be? That's like, oh, okay, this guy thinks that, okay, when he gets out, he needs a job so he can support his kid. So when I'm talking to that, maybe he's having a rough day. Like, hey, you know, your kid, would he like this? Like, are you gonna, you know, is this decision you're making gonna be good for your future? You know, sometimes, most of the time, you don't do that. Like, but there's some people that affects more than others. So
I assume the dungeon people aren't the people that are working to get out.
Most of those people I probably have the least contact with because they're the ones hiding. They're the ones that don't want to be out in the day room. They're the ones that don't want to be out. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, some inmates will want to talk you or off. Other inmates will never want to talk to you unless they have to. So it's some levels, like the dungeon guy is one that never wants to talk to people unless he has to.
So that's the Buffalo Bills and stuff.
Yeah, you're not going to know them that much.
I wouldn't want to talk to those guys either. Fuck.
Yeah. So, but, you know, everyone on your unit, you're responsible for. You got to make sure everyone's alive. You got to make sure everyone's safe. Like, you are, you know, you got to think of, like, prison is a city. You know, everyone's going to work, everyone's doing the job, everyone's just trying to get by. Some people commit crimes, and you're the police officer there to stop it. Mm-hmm. And then some people send them, get arrested, quote unquote, they go to segregation, and they get separated for a while. You know, prison is a city. And you have to, and it's run like a city, and you have to make sure that everyone's following the rules, and everything's going smooth.
I get you. Let's close on this.
As much as you can. You know, it's never perfect.
I understand. Let's close on this. And for real this time, because I know you gotta get up early.
For real? Oh, fuck yeah. It's gonna be an early morning.
The last question, because I really don't want to end, I realize I don't want to end on that, like, horror that we just talked about.
Hey, welcome to Heavy Set Go, where we get into real deep shit. Can I come on another podcast where we're not talking about terrible shit?
Oh, absolutely.
And we're just talking about dick jokes with Ben and Alan?
Yeah.
Okay, we need to do that.
Absolutely. I can't guarantee Alan, but I'm sure Easton will be pleased to come on. Alan, you should come on, though. He doesn't listen to these. What am I talking to him for? But
he doesn't listen to his own podcast? For shame, Alan.
I'm sure.
For shame.
Oh, he will hear this, but it'll be like 6 years from now, and he'll be like, oh.
You know what? You didn't die in Korea to come back here and not join podcasts. Come on.
Yeah, come on, dude. But last question. Like, what's the most people can think of working in a prison as like doom and gloom? People think of it as doom and gloom working in a prison, but what's something redeeming or something that has brought you hope, like working in such an environment?
I think I said this before, but, you know, in 2 years of being there now, I've got to know some people and seen people that were horrifically awful human beings that have changed their life or that have attempted to change their life. I think is one of the better things I've seen. And
you've come to really believe that they're earnestly trying to make themselves better.
I'm here 2 years. Maybe I still have kind of the rose-tinted glasses on, but I think there are definitely some people I've met that I think they are genuinely trying to make a change in their life. Not everyone is doing it. Some people are like, I don't need any of this. But I think there's some people that really like recognize, like, I need help. I don't know what I'm going to do. And those people, I think, those are the people that give me hope. Has every single one of those people panned out doing that? No. But there are definitely people that have really tried. And when they get out, I really hope I wish them the best. Because I really don't want to see them back.
Have you seen any former inmates out in public?
I've seen a couple. So
What
like
have
I
you
said
said to
at the
them?
beginning, just kind of they're like, "Oh, hi, Officer Shannon," and I'm just like, "Oh, hi," I'm with my wife, and she kind of gets the cue to I need to wander off somewhere, and you say your highs and greetings, and I guess the two people I've seen I haven't had much of an issue with, and most people don't. Like I said, most people once they get out, they want to be. Most people just want to be normal again.
What would you
Like I said, when people have all these jobs and they're just people are trying to find some sort of normalcy, return to their lives. They've just had this crazy experience. They're in prison. It's awful. Every night these people are sad. But it's like they're trying to find somebody to return to normal. Once they get outside, they're normal again, and they don't want to lose that.
If you ran into one of these guys in public, wherever, and they came up to you and they said, "Officer Shannon, I feel so lost. What can I do? What can you tell me to do to make my life better so I don't go back?" What would you tell them?
I have never had that experience myself, but I've had other officers that had that.
But what would you say?
I would say it's just, depending on the inmate, if I know them. I can't be like this guardian angel that knows everything about people. Some of the guys like, hey, man, you were a pretty good cook back in prison. Have you been trying to do that kind of stuff again? It's like that was like I was going to say. I mean, we had an officer who had an inmate get his phone number and called him like, hey, I got a prison. I don't know what the hell I'm doing in my life. And the officer's like, who the fuck are you again? And it was like, the guy's like, oh, this guy. And he was like, okay, I got a job interview. What do I do? And it's like, well, you tell him the truth. You were in prison, you this, that, and just tell people to try and be normal. I mean, like, everyone's got this, oh, don't be normal anymore. Keep Portland weird. It's like, sometimes just people want to just have a normal, uneventful life.
In Portland, weird is normal.
People just want to have a normal, uneventful life. They don't want anything crazy. Most people just want a normal life. They don't want anything crazy. And, just trying to, like, hey, have you tried to find a job? Are you going to try and get in touch with your parents?
So stability is,
I think, the thing people need the most. Because, like I said, there's some people when they get out of prison, you've had that stability the last 10 years you lived there. Now you don't know what tomorrow brings. Prison, you know what every day is going to be. Chow lines run at these times. Yard runs at these times. You go to medical at this time. All these things are timed to your day, and some people are institutionalized by them when they're scared when they get out, and that's, helping these guys find some kind of normalcy. It's like, I don't know what I'll say that day, but hopefully I can point them in the right direction.
Okay.
That's the hope. But, I have been assaulted in prison before, and that inmate is going to parole in 3 years in Pendleton. If I'm still living there, I carry. So, just in case.
That's true. Oh, we never talked about that.
It's a story for another time.
Okay. Thank you, Zach.
Thank you, Jeff. Good seeing you. Next time I'll be on, we'll still probably talk about it a little bit, but let's talk more about dick jokes and farts and stuff. That's always fun. I don't know what the hell you guys talk about. I listened to the first episode, but I need to listen to the others.
Yeah, you should.
Because they're not on iTunes or something where I can download easily.
Hey,
I don't just...
Go to YouTube, link them to a conversion website, and download the MP3.
Probably need to do that. But that's too much work.
It's a lot of work. But anyway, this has been Jeff Crenshaw.
It's Zack Shannon.
And this is Heavy Set Go.
Heavy Set Go!